Hey there, Phil. So welcome to Storm Fitness. Phil, we're just going to have a bit of a chat about periodization firstly. So what is periodization?
It's ultimately it's a plan of training. So it's taking training down into components and breaking it down into blocks,
Yeah,
and then each block generally has a goal or a purpose that you're trying to ultimately take the athlete to.
yeah,
So it can be, these could be things that are, you can plan training for, what you class a quadricycle, which is what, Olympians typically work by.
yep.
So it's like a 4-year training cycle. Obviously along the way, you're adjusting things, you're tweaking things, you're doing bits and pieces with things, but, it's just it's a planned period of training.
Yes, okay, sure. Now, when would you use periodization and when would you not use periodization? Is there ever a time when you would not use periodization?
Yeah. All depends on who you're dealing with, really.
Yeah.
Some people do use periodization right across the board.
Hmm.
I'm just not a big fan of it in certain circumstances. When I'm dealing with physique competitors,
Okay.
when I'm dealing with fat loss clients,
Yep.
periodization is less of a priority
Yeah.
because we're not looking at performance goals and the outcomes. Unfortunately, when you're looking at performance goals, you're not always guaranteed, but you can look at progression. Progression's
Yeah.
always going to occur to some way, shape, or form. There's going to be stalling points in there with technical problems, technique issues and what have you. And then with fat loss and things, because it's a little less predictable, a lot of it is I guess in a way you are periodising things like your diet, you're planning diet, whether you look at diet as periodisation, but it's, you are planning outcomes and you plan on phases and periods of time in which you're doing certain things.
Okay.
So certainly with fat loss clients, physique clients, it's less of a concern as I have with a performance athlete.
Okay, so if we take one of your physique clients, what stages would they go through from if it's an experienced physique client when they come to you and they want to get the best results possible for their competition? What would you be looking at for that athlete?
I'd be finding where the competition is.
Yeah.
So obviously we need a time scale.
Yes.
So we're looking in a similar format to how we would with periodization. So I'm going to be looking at, perhaps a standard plan will be 12 weeks, 16 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I'm going to obviously to observe the athlete, take a look at them,
Yeah.
because it is a physique competition. I've got to see where they are, where I deem the weak points are, where the strong points are.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be at some stage an honest assessment from me
Yeah.
as to what can be done in that time scale.
Yes.
Some people just come and they're just not going to be ready in that time.
Right.
So we may well move a competition further down the line. We
Yeah.
might say, look, let's see what happens. Because again, as I say, it's with fat loss. Sometimes it's unpredictable, and you can't always grasp fully the history of somebody as to how much damage or what class of metabolic damage has been done in the past. So you might have somebody who's a complete mess internally, and you don't actually realise until you start, because it's based on what they can tell you.
Okay.
So I'm looking at history.
Yeah.
I'm looking at food logs. I'm looking at what they did held 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm asking all the relevant questions to find out where the metabolism is, what they've done to tweak it, what they've done to damage it,
Yeah.
where they currently stand. So food logs, I'm looking at what their current caloric intake is.
Yeah.
If I see their progressions ceased because of lack of intake,
Yeah.
I'm going to ramp things up initially, which may seem a bit of a bizarre logic for some people.
Yeah.
But I'm going to find out how I can speed their metabolism up using food to start with.
Okay. And with that, Phil, there's a lot of sort of low-calorie diet plans out there at the moment, for fat loss, lighter life, these kind of things. If somebody's come to you and they've been on a low-calorie diet, what's your strategy to get their metabolism up and running again and to get them back onto something a little bit more normal, should we say?
Probably one of the first things I've got to do with a client like that is get that notion out of their head, and let them understand why that model isn't going to work. Make them understand, why we're making these changes. I'm big on this. I'm huge on this when I teach, when I'm with clients one-on-one. They need to know why they're doing something, because ultimately, as human beings, if we don't understand something at some point, if it begs any bizarre questions to us, we'll quit. We stop.
Yep.
So it's really important for me to give them the whys and the hows. I'm then going to look at things like digestive function. I'm going to look at their food turnover. I'm going to look at their macro split as it was.
Yep.
Then I'm going to slowly start to bring things like proteins and fats. I'm going to bring them up.
Yeah.
According to everything right down to levels of inflammation.
Yeah.
If there's any health problems in there,
yeah.
I'm going to bring them up, and then I'm going to start to bring carbs in and around those strategically, based on their previous intake, based on where they may have damaged systems. They may be low carb, they may be high carb. There could be a million different reads, solutions to what we want.
Okay, and with those carbs, Phil, when you introduce them around training, what kind of carbohydrate would that be? Would you ever advocate, starch carbohydrates, or is it sort of low GI stuff, vegetables? What are we talking about?
Again, it depends on the individual.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody will start with the vegetable base.
Yeah.
It's important to get the fibre, the micronutrients, etc. in there.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to be consuming a lot of vegetables.
Yes.
That's pretty much across the board with my fat loss clients, with my athletes. It doesn't matter who.
Yes.
They be consuming a lot of vegetables. Then on top of that, we'll be looking at starches. We'll be looking at some forms of complex carbohydrates. The simple ones we're going to reserve for strategic use. In and around workout if need be. So just really, it's I'm going to stay away from things with wheat, gluten, anything that could possibly give me a reaction. Because remember, I've got a given amount of time I'm dealing with these people. So I have. This has been in discussion over the last couple of weeks with various people. But I have suspect foods. I have foods that I have a high percentage of people have reacted to. Looking at someone to have at the end of 12 weeks have a physique that operates well and looks great. I'm not going to take any risks with digestive problems, digestive turnover. I'm going to everything that they consume gets absorbed and used efficiently.
Yes. So you'd be avoiding sort of like gluten foods, things like that with them, is that right? Or?
Just suspect foods. I've got nothing against them. In some respects, wheat and gluten maybe I do in a way, but dairy I'm going to mitt out now. I'm going to minimise fruit intake because their veg intake's going to be high, just simply because they're what a class of reactionary foods. And just in a lot of my experience, I've had a lot of clients who, particularly when they're looking at physique and certainly competing, react by they don't. It interrupts digestive turnover. It interrupts absorption. It gives them a bit of fluid retention, what have you. So it's not that I'm like anti-fruit, anti-dairy, anti this, that, the other. It's just these are foods that I'm not prepared to take a risk on.
For your competitors, okay. And Phil, with what about with your performance clients? What would your approach to bar speed? When would you use a tempo? When would you use like a slow tempo with a client? And when would you use some more powerful movements?
Again, it's obviously goal oriented, Spencer. It's depends on what the client wants and depend on what. Well, not always the client. It's sometimes what the coach wants. But it's got to vary depending on what the end goal is. So I might get an athlete off season who's looking at they need to put some size on, but they also need to ensure that they don't lose any force production. So then I might start to control tempo in the sort of eccentric phases of the lifts. So they start with a slower eccentric and keep the concentric, the explosive portion. And I might start to play around with them a little bit, just simply because I'm looking at the building aspect. If I'm looking at athletes who are they've got to implement the explosive movements from start to finish, bar speed's always going to be up there. I'm a big believer in if you are in a strength sport or a performance sport where force is a large part of the equation, the bar has always got to. You've always got to have the intent of moving the bar at maximal velocity.
I seem to remember actually, Phil, when I came down to come and visit you in London, that that you introduced me to some of your tempos and an interesting workout. But Phil, so just in closing then, with all of the work that you're doing at the moment, what is it exactly that you would like to get from it? What's if somebody was to remember, your work, your legacy that you're leaving, what is it you'd like to be remembered for?
I've never been asked that. I don't know really. I like to know that I'm. When I write an article and things like this, I'm trying to reach more people.
Yes.
I'm not. you know, and I see that as a model that I can do that with. You know, when I teach, reaching more people. You know, I had 50 plus people on my seminar last weekend.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I know that as trainers, I've now got 50 plus trainers that are going to go away and, you know, change, you know, 20 plus people's lives, each one of them. So, you know, it's that kind of, it's that sort of impact, and it's, you know, it's knowing that people are reading my stuff and knowing that people are interested in what I've got to say. So I do like my speaking, and I do like my writing, but ultimately I'll always enjoy training people in the gym environment. But it's something that over time I know that, you know, I'm going to train less and less people probably, and certainly my turnover of clients, unfortunately, the byproduct of as you move forward in the industry, people tend to stick with you. Unfortunately, that locks up your time, and it means that you can't deal with that many people. So now, what I, you know, with my diary, I have a ton of floating slots as such that, you know, I leave open every week, because a lot of people just want one or two sessions with me just to go through some educational stuff or whatever it might be. And, you know, I really enjoy those, because it's, you know, I know that information is going to be taken away and used. So I think just, you know, just to be known for information and, you know, getting stuff out there and helping as many people as possibly can, really.
Brilliant. And Phil, just on the industry that we work in at the moment as well, I know that you're at UP and with your own teaching, launching a lot of education. What do you think of the industry at the moment, and what are the trends that you see appearing?
Well, the industry's a mess.
Right.
I'll tell you that much. It's it has been for a while, and I don't know whether it's necessarily the industry that's entirely to blame. I think it's, you know, the level of teaching that people receive is poor. It's, you know, people are getting qualified to do something which ultimately is, you know, we're looking at the human being here. We're looking at mechanics. We're looking at physiology. We're looking at things that are complicated. And people are, you know, learning how to go out there and teach these things in days. And it just can't be done. And unfortunately, with the invention of the internet, the invention of, you know, social networking, there's a lot of people out there who are they're almost creating a face for themselves, but still dishing out very, very average and very bad information. And unfortunately, that's, you know, it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. In many respects, it's, you know, I see social networking as a great way of getting information across to people. You know, I use it very heavily, as you know, but I also think it allows a lot of people through the cracks. With respect to what we're trying to do with UP, we're trying to put together a curriculum that's a little bit different, but it's modularized. We're looking at breaking things down in more detail. So we're not necessarily saying, look, you're going to come and spend 6 days with us and we'll qualify you as a PT. You're going to spend 6 months in and out with us, and then we'll qualify you as a PT. You know, so that's the idea, that everything's modularized. It allows people to go away, start applying some of this stuff, and even people who've got, you know, they're at level 3 already. We're trying to tap into that market and go, look, we're going to give you something different to add on to what you already know.
Brilliant. And Phil, just one last thing. At Storm, we have kind of a tradition when anybody comes to our gym, or, you know, joins us online, that they have to come up with a nickname. Now, the way you come up with your gym name is you have to kind of put yourself in the most flattering kind of light with your nickname, and it needs to be slightly kind of aggressive. So, for instance, I am Powerhouse. Big Bear has already gone. Tower Block has gone. Have you got a name for yourself yet, Phil?
I don't know.
What?
I have no idea. Anyway, you dropped this on me very quickly. I
didn't warn you of that one. Okay, anything that you can think of? Just
I was known as Rhino.
Rhino.
So,
yeah, that's good.
Hey, it's always a good one.
Good, yeah. I think you can pull that off, definitely. Right, no problem. And Phil, just one thing as well. We're going to be having you up to Storms shortly. Dates to be confirmed. But what can guys coming along to that course expect?
Well, we discussed content, didn't we, earlier? with respect to we're going to do? Just remind me, it's fat loss.
Fat loss in the morning of the first day, hypertrophy and muscle building in the afternoon, and then performance practical and performance theory on day 2.
Cool. So day 1, this is just off the top of my head right now.
Yeah.
We'll probably cover a lot of nutritional strategies with the fat loss. We'll go through probably a little less practical with the fat loss because it's more about understanding the mechanics behind what you're doing.
Yes.
So we'll have a look at rep parameters and the reasons why you do these rep parameters with fat loss clients.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do with respect to volume and intensity.
Yeah.
How you're trying to manipulate them around, energy intake, outtake, etc., etc. We'll do some stuff on things like carb cycling and what have you. Then the training on the Saturday or on the first day, we'll probably do a lot of looking at tempo, looking at technical aspects.
Yep.
We'll cover a little bit more about what we're trying to do with different kinds of client demographics. So obviously when we're looking at hypertrophy, we're looking at stimulating muscle fibers from different angles and recruiting more motor units, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So I'll go through the methodology behind that and some practical stuff. Day 2, performance stuff. We'll go through some performance parameters, what we're trying to look at with different athletes in different sports, things to look out for, things to avoid. We'll go through some training planning. What else will we cover? Maybe look at some mechanical work, some mobilization, some activation drills, and get them on the gym floor doing some stuff.
Oh dear.
So we'll get people sweating.
Yeah.
Just a kind of a broad overview, but I'd anticipate it'll probably run something like that.
Yeah, great. Sounds brilliant. All right. Well, all to say then is thanks very much, Rhino. Thanks for joining us. And, look forward to catching up soon.
You're welcome. All right, Spence.
All right. Cheers, Phil. Okay, we'll clip that one just there after that, Phil. But I will be in touch soon, eh?